Oh, so here's something that happened about a month ago, I guess, that I hadn't heard about. I don't know if you heard about this one, but I'm surprised we haven't talked about it. Apparently, Ari Shaffir took a shit on stage at a Skankfest pop-up show. I might have heard about it, and it just went in one ear and out the other because I assumed they were talking about his set. But apparently, he actually took a dump on stage and then proceeds to pull a note out of it and read it announcing his new tour, which is called the Farewell Tour. I haven't looked into that. I don't know if he's actually giving up comedy or it's just a ironic name. But, and also I'm sure he didn't really pull the note out of his shit. I'm sure it was like some sleight of hand shit. He just, shit. But pretended to. I doubt he wrote a note, ate it, then was able to pull it out of his shit, obviously. His bloody shit. Apparently his bloody. The man needs to see a doctor. But that's pretty wild. He's kind of been really going off the deep end since that Kobe tweet, right? Like, I don't know what's going on with that guy. I did see, and he's been doing this thing where he's got half his head and half his facial hair shaved, like literally one half down vertical line of his face. I don't know. I assumed it was just kind of an attention thing, but he might be losing his mind a little bit. I did see him doing something on stage. They were all wearing costumes. He was dressed up as a dreidel or something, but it was like an interview. People were asking him questions, and someone asked about the drugging. I guess he drugged Big J Okerson as well, dosed him, you know. There was that story a couple years ago about him doing that to Bert Kreischer, and they brought that up. And in that, at least, performance or interview or whatever the hell it was, Q&A, I don't know, he claimed that he did not actually dose Bert, that they were hanging out, and Bert said, "Wouldn't it be funny if I said you dosed me?" So I don't know if that's him now trying to get out of it, or if he was just trying to be funny or throw Bert under the bus on stage, or if that was just a straight lie, completely made up the whole time. And Bert's been, playing the pity card on that one on a lot of podcasts, or did for like 6 months after it happened a couple years ago. I don't know.
That's weird. I don't know. All these comics are fucking sociopaths. I do think Ari Shaffir is off the deep end. I think he has been for a long time. The half hair thing is hilarious. And like some of the shit he does is hilarious. I don't care for the, shitting on stage or whatever, or even the whole Kobe thing was ridiculous. If they did make up the lie about drugging him, I don't really buy that. But all of it's just weird. He's a weird guy. To me, he's an example of somebody who's like, he's one of those people who's like genuinely insane, like in all of his actions, like just the way he lives his life is insane. But then within that, he has this like zen, you know what I mean? Like, so he almost comes off as a normal person, but his behavior is just insane. And that's because he's so used to being an insane person that he has like found his center within that. But what you said about the drugging story possibly being a lie, that reminds me of Bobby Lee. When Bobby Lee got in trouble recently, because he used to tell this story about like having sex with an underage prostitute, raping an underage prostitute in Mexico or something. I don't know. And he used to tell this story all the time on like Opie and Anthony, and then it came back up recently, I think in connection to the whole drama that happened with the Netflix show Beef over a similar thing. An actor on the show Beef told basically the same story on like podcasts a few years ago, and then it came back up because he was an actor all of a sudden on this show. And same thing, it's like a weird creepy story about a girl, and then basically what he said afterwards, both of them said the same thing, which was, it wasn't true, I was just lying because I needed to tell a crazy sounding story. And that's what this guy, I believe his name is David Cho, said, although that might actually be the character's name. I don't know what the actor's name is. He said that about the story that he told, But Bobby Lee also said the same thing. He said, I made it up. And that one makes a little bit more sense because that was back in like Opie and Anthony days. And he like basically was like, when you go on that show, you have to think of the craziest shit to say. You can't, it's like, it's got to be a fucked up conversation. That's just how it was, which is kind of believable. But then the way he kind of drove it home was by saying, and look, a lot of the things that I've said about myself over the years, like running stories that I constantly tell about myself that are incorporated into this person of Bobby Lee, a lot of it's made up. Like the fact that he got molested by a mentally retarded person when he was a kid, or I think he said also that the fact that his dad used to beat him, that like these things aren't true and I'm always lying about it and I just wanted to come clean about it now. But then now he still talks about those things like they're true. And the truth is, you just have no idea. All he's doing there is muddying the waters, because it's like, we have no idea if he's telling the truth about this story in Tijuana or whatever. And he's taking these stories that he's told 100 times over his career and he's saying that those are made up, but that could just easily be a lie to make us as the audience feel like we have no idea what to believe and what not to believe, which is a totally sociopathic move, but it seems to kind of be what some of these podcasters do in order to survive, I guess.
Yeah, see, right there, I think you hit on one of the fundamental things that's a problem with the comedian podcast scene, which I enjoy for the most part. Don't get me wrong when I say it's a problem, but these comedians, and you've done stand-up. When you're writing a story, especially one from your life, first of all, the ideal story is something from your life, because people can tell when you're speaking a truth and you speak about it differently, you have more to speak on with it and stuff, but then you exaggerate it and make it more entertaining for stage. That's the way it works. These comedians get so used to doing that over and over again for years. It's just part of the act, and it's not a big deal because you expect the act to at least be partially fictionalized, if not completely fictional, right? But then they get into podcasting full time, and the podcasting audience it's a different relationship. When you're listening to these people talk every week for months on end, years on end, you develop a parasocial relationship with them and you feel like you know them. It seems like they're your friends, you know their story, their life, and part of that is because they're telling you these intimate details of their lives. But when it's a comedian who's telling you these stories that they've made up or exaggerated or changed or whatever, it muddies that water too much with that parasocial relationship, and that's where you find people like Bobby Lee getting themselves in trouble. First of all, though, I do believe that story is true. I think it was in TJ he talked about it happening, but didn't he say, wasn't that even not the worst part of it? It was that, like, her crying is what made him climax? Like, I thought it was more messed up than that. Well, whatever the case, yeah, that was bullshit. I've heard a lot of Bert stuff is bullshit too, more so than the average comedian. Almost all of his stories are supposedly made up. He's got that great Tracy Morgan story. That's probably bullshit. I don't know, but the waters are definitely muddied with comedians and podcasts. And yeah, Ari is insane. I like some of his comedy, not all of it. The Kobe thing, I didn't even see a problem with, man. I mean, that guy, like, right? I mean, I know everything else he's done's kind of overshadowed that in the public eye, but he apologized. He admitted guilt. Her blood was on his shirt. He donated a bunch of money to, like, battered women's shelters and stuff like that, or some kind of charity for women survivors of sexual assault and stuff like that. Like, it's known. I don't care if he, became a fucking saint after it, and his victim forgives him or whatever. It's still all right to roast him or talk about him being a piece of shit. He's a rapist. That's how it happens.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when it comes to Kobe, there's still a lot of people who revere Kobe and will defend him against the rape allegations, because the girl did withdraw her accusation, so the court case didn't go through. And I don't know if that means he settled, but I don't think so. I think she withdrew her statement at some point. Doesn't mean he didn't do it. I think he probably did. A lot of people think he didn't, and it's one of those things that's just will forever be in the gray zone because it never really got resolved, and then now the guy's dead. But that was what Ari Shaffir said at the time, is he was like, fuck that guy, fuck that dead rapist I don't give a fuck. So like he was kind of right about that. Like it was kind of, you know, it was just that Kobe has such a huge fan base of people who don't believe that, and I guess people who, you know, were hurt by that at the time, that you know, he just got like dogpiled over it. But yeah, I mean, he was kind of right. Fuck Kobe.
Yeah, seriously, fuck him. Like, I mean, I remember when it happened, I'd made a couple jokes because I'd heard he was racist, and people were giving me shit about it. And I looked into it. I need to more if I'm going to keep talking about it, I guess. But I remember everything I was reading at the time, that it was pretty clear. I mean, if he apologized, I guess he might have been one of those like, oh, I thought there was consent, and you know, I am so sorry that there was a misunderstanding and this and that, blah, blah, blah. It's probably what it was. I don't know, but it seems like he did it. And her blood was on his shirt. Like, the DNA test came back. Like, so, I don't know. I guess it could have gotten there in other ways, but I tend to believe victims. If she retracted it, though, I didn't read about that at the time. So, I don't know. I'm down to look into it out of my own curiosity, I guess.
Oh, Bert Kreischer told this one story one time. This was like one of the first things I ever heard about him or saw him say, and it made me dislike him right off the bat. But like, he was telling the story about Will Smith, about how he like knew Will Smith at one point because of like, I don't know, his dad or some shit, and he was talking about how he was a big fan of hip hop. No, I think it was that he met Will Smith because through doing comedy or whatever. But he's always been a big fan of hip hop, which I think is true, you know, like old school hip hop artists. And so Will Smith took a liking to him supposedly because of that. But this whole story was about how basically he got it in his head that Will Smith was gonna fuck him because he heard from like, I guess his dad, that Will Smith, that's what he does, is he like courts people and fucks them. And so he, you know, Will Smith is like befriending him, and then at one point brings him over to his house for like a private like movie screening. And Bert said that he's in the room with all these other black guys and Will Smith, and he's thinking that he's terrified the whole time because he's thinking that he's gonna get gangbanged by all these black guys, and that's the plan. And then the lights go on and he's freaking out. He's not talking to anybody, and like he had been introduced to all these people before, but only when the lights come up later does he realize that this is like Q-Tip and fucking a bunch of famous rappers, like Black Thought and shit from New York, like, you know, the famous rappers from the scene that he's supposedly a fan of. And the whole time he like, just that was the point of the story, that he thought that these guys were all there to fuck him. And it's just like, what a weird, gross, creepy story. That just made me dislike him like a lot. And the way he told it was definitely not any funnier than the way I just told it.
Okay, first of all, Q-Tip, holy shit, dude. I love Q-Tip. I haven't thought about him in years. He's one of the guys that got me into hip-hop. But yeah, I've heard that story. And yeah, I think that's apparently when Bert busted onto the scene, it was really hot. Like, there was heat on him. People wanted him for stuff. He was getting like TV deals that never worked out and stuff. But that's how he got in touch with Will Smith. I mean, apparently Van Wilder is based on him. I guess, like, I don't remember exactly how it happened. There was an article written about him for being like one of the biggest college partiers or whatever. And they were going to turn it into a movie and this and that, and some stuff didn't happen. He saw a script for it and it just ended up not working out or whatever. But then later when Van Wilder comes out, he's like, oh shit, that was exactly the script. And it was like the same screenwriter or whatever. So I don't know how true that is, but it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, so there's all the heat on him, and yeah, then the version of it I heard him say, it was all his dad putting in his head. Like you said, his dad told him that's what these Hollywood types do. It sounded like it was just some racist and not really knowing how Hollywood works kind of stuff at the time. But now the more stuff you hear about P. Diddy and some of his celebrity buddies comes out, it's like, well, maybe there is some truth to that. But for Bert Kreischer to think Will Smith was courting him to rape him is so fucking ridiculous and gross. I thought that story was pretty bad too, but I didn't hear that till like a year ago. I was already well aware of Bert Kreischer when I heard that story. Have you heard the Tracy Morgan one? The Tracy Morgan one's pretty wild, and it's funny because, like, I guess when he was coming up, he was good friends with Jay Moore, and Jay Moore was kind of like his mentor, and Bert didn't want to tell the story because he can't do a good Tracy Morgan, which I find hard to believe because everyone can do a good Tracy Morgan, but so he let Jay tell the story on stage. But when you tell the story, obviously you got to tell it like it happened to you. Going back to like what we were talking about with Bobby Lee and stuff. But I guess eventually that started to rub Bert the wrong way because he was telling it like it happened to him, and they had a big falling out and a back and forth over it. And Bert had, I guess, told him to stop doing it, and he kept doing it. Even though Bert gave him permission to use it originally. I don't know. Just, their normal drama stuff. But, I just think Bert's full of shit more than anything else. I really am amazed that he's gotten as far as he has with, like... I honestly cannot think of one Bert Kreischer joke. I know the machine story, right? But that's, like, it. And I've seen... I don't know if I've actually ever sat through a whole special of his... But I've put like one or two of them on. Does he even? Yeah, he's got a few of them out there. But I've seen clips of his stand-up and stuff. But I can't tell you one Bert Kreischer joke other than the machine. Like, his material does not stand out or stick with you at all.